Chapter 4, Part 1. As hangovers go, he's probably 94% sure that he's had worse. The headache is splitting, and he would rather bleed out slowly from a gut wound than open his eyes right now. But his stomach is okay, and his mouth doesn't taste like a sticky barroom floor, and his pillow smells amazing. Eventually, he'll have to flop off his bed, like a beached whale, but sadder, and go find the bottle of Advil they keep in their shared bathroom. Now is not eventually. That settled, Keith decides to do the sensible thing and go back to sleep. Nuzzling into his pillow, which is warm and smooth and oddly firm, but again, smells amazing, he lets himself doze. Sometime later, when he feels sunlight starting to nudge at his eyelids, he rouses again. The second wake up is usually that eventually where he goes after medication. Keith knows he needs to do it. Advil, and water, and some toast if he can choke it down. Get on with the morning like a semi-functional adult. But he's content. If he were maybe 3% less blurred by residual alcohol, he'd probably be panicking about that. He's not the kind of person who does content. Especially not with a hangover. The blur is firmly in place, though, so all he manages is a disgruntled murmur before he twists his face away from the encroaching sunlight and aggressively cuddles back into his pillow. Fuck getting up. He's going to stay exactly where he is until someone pries him out of bed. Nothing can hurt him here. Not even his own inherent self-loathing. Halfway to dozing off again, he realizes that the steady thump in his ear isn't actually his own pulse. The heavy weight draped over his waist isn't his blankets. And the bone-deep contentment he's feeling probably has something to do with the fact that he's using Shiro as a body pillow. Don't panic. The command echoes from somewhere deep inside him, maybe fueled by the last tatters of self-preservation he has. It's all that keeps him from trying to launch away from Shiro like a frightened cat. Carefully, he assesses the situation. They're both clothed. Enough. Someone, probably Shiro, stripped Keith down to his tee and boxers. Also, not that Keith's noticing, but Shiro's shirtless. They're in their dorm, but not in the common area because he can't hear the steady hum of the fridge. Also, they're tangled up in each other. Even more than usual. Keith's got one of Shiro's thighs trapped between his own, and Shiro's got an arm hooked around his waist, and there's not a breath of space between them anywhere that he can tell. Beneath him, Shiro lets out a questioning rumble that almost sounds like a purr. If lions purred.
You awake?
He asks. Same as always. There's a sleep heaviness to his voice that has Keith wrestling with the urge to nuzzle his face deeper into Shiro's chest.
Yeah.
Keith sounds like he got choked out, and also like he downed an entire bottle of whiskey by himself, which, given his hangover, isn't entirely out of the question. Shiro's arm, the one that's not already draped over the small of his back, curls over his shoulders as his hand cups the nape of Keith's neck. Escaping is now impossible, unless he's willing to fight for it. Which, given the state of his stomach, is also impossible. Or at least fucking questionable. Like maybe he was waiting to see how Keith would react to the new hold. Shiro relaxes. Makes another one of those rumbling noises that could probably become addictive. If Keith nuzzles deeper into Shiro's chest then, it's between him and Shiro's right pec. Guess Keith lives here now. There are worse places. They stay like that for a few minutes. Outside their dorm, people start to wake up and they crash through the halls on their way to the elevators. Dining halls will be open by now. Just the thought of getting up and going out is awful. Still.
What time is it?
Almost 10. Shiro says carelessly. Like he's not the one who considers 8 a.m. the height of luxurious sleeping in. How do you feel? Like a baby deer staggering around after going 3 rounds with a mountain lion. Fine. You sure? No, not at all. I'm not gonna puke, if that's what you're asking. When Shiro laughs, it feels a little like an earthquake, and Keith absolutely does not take the opportunity to cling to him more firmly. I'm glad. Fingertips tease up into his hair, almost like petting a cat. Keith's not a cat. It feels good anyway. Everything about this feels good, down to the way their skin sticks together where they're tangled up. I'd hold your hair again if you did. Keith wrinkles his nose. You held my hair? Wait. I puked? Again, Shiro laughs and scratches gently at his nape. I did. You didn't. There was a lot of dry heaving, though. That information isn't nearly as reassuring as Shiro apparently thinks it is. It's really not. If it was just dry heaving, why did you hold my hair? Not the most relevant thing to focus on, but he's working on maybe 2 brain cells and slow bubbling panic. Because he's oblivious. To social niceties, to inner turmoil, to the continued failure of Keith's carefully laid plans, Shiro chooses that exact moment to slide his hand at Keith's waist a few inches down. To Keith's hip. Perilously close to Keith's ass. You were pretty insistent about it, Shiro says. Don't panic. Turns into, don't get hard. As mantras go, it's pretty much entirely useless. They're touching in too many places. He's always weak and thirsty when it comes to Shiro manhandling him. There's not a good way to extricate himself. And Keith's left fumbling for solid ground. Solid ground that isn't Shiro's pecs. Why is he so bad at this? Shiro exhales then. Not quite a sigh, but too deep to be anything but bracing. His thumb digs in slightly, right above Keith's hip bone, rubbing gentle circles. How much do you remember? Why? Defensiveness comes easy, but it's harder to sustain when he can feel how badly he fucked up. Beneath him, Shiro's gone still and tense. Regret sets in. Clenching his eyes shut, Keith tries to pull up memories of the night before. Most of what he can pull up is fuzzy, but innocent enough. We went to the bar for your birthday, he offers. I remember you opening presents, and all of us playing pool. And was Griffin there? Too neutrally, Shiro says. He was. Fuck, did I deck him? It's not that Keith doesn't think he wouldn't deck Griffin, especially if he was drunk, but mostly he asks because he knows it'll make Shiro laugh. And Shiro does laugh, even if he doesn't lose all the newfound tension. No, you behaved yourself. That's probably good. Tiredly, Keith props his chin on Shiro's pec so they can look at each other. Like the rest of him, his chin and jaw are all bone-sharp angles. But Shiro doesn't shove him off. Never shoves him off. Even when, like now, Shiro won't meet his eyes either. That's fine. Keith can wait it out. Digging his chin in slightly, he watches the faint tick near Shiro's left eye that always starts up when he's deep in thought. Maybe 2 or 3 minutes pass, long enough for Keith's eyes to go half-lidded and for his body to go lax. They're still touching in too many places, but he's also too comfortable whenever he's in Shiro's arms to stay on edge. Alertness only returns when Shiro clears his throat. Do you remember anything after Griffin? Closing his eyes again, like it'll help him remember, he roots around in the fuzzy aftermath of Griffin's smirky existence. You came and got me, he says. Feels a smile tug at his lips. Which is probably why I behaved, huh? Keith feels the sharp inhale before he hears it. Before he can open his eyes, judge how exactly he messed up, he feels Shiro petting him again. The combination of the hand at his nape and the hand on his hip soothes him down, even before Shiro goes, "Shh, it's okay." There's a pause, where Shiro clearly waits for him to relax again, before, "You're right. I came and got you and made sure you behaved. And after, we..." Wrinkling his nose, Keith ventures, "We went back to the booth?" This gets a rumble of confirmation. Probably because he's kept at it long enough, the scene plays on the back of his eyelids and fits and starts. Asking if he was cock-blocking Shiro. Announcing he was hot enough to be a one-night stand. And face-planting into Shiro's lap in an attempt to suck his... "I tried to blow you." The words don't tumble out. No. They come out like prisoners marching to the gallows. One at a time, at a measured pace, with all due solemnity. Keith feels the weight of each one. Most anything else, he probably could have found a way to justify. Shiro knows him, for better and for usually worse. Getting into a bar fight would have been justifiable. Hot-wiring a car would have been justifiable. Disappearing into the desert, only to wander back the next morning, sullen and sand-streaked, would have been justifiable. Okay, the last one would have landed him with a furious lecture about safety, but their friendship would have survived. "I tried to blow you," he says again. "And you stopped me. And even after you pulled me off, I kept..." Memories are tricky for him. He's more used to blocking them than keeping them. These ones are refracted, like looking at them through the bottom of an old glass Coke bottle. I kept... He remembers the light on Shiro's cheekbones, and the way he dug his fingers into Shiro's forearm. He remembers whining like a child for Shiro not to leave him. He remembers. And he hates himself. I kept clinging to you. Anxiety yawns open beneath his collarbone. With it comes all the familiar demons. Numb fingers, pressure behind his eyes, the desire to move fast and heedless and in no direction but away. There's buzzing in his spine and humming in his teeth. When he inhales, he can't make himself exhale, so he has to inhale again. The world tips in darkness, and his back hits the bed. Forearms brace on either side of his head, bracketing him in and keeping Shiro's weight from crushing his overworked lungs. They're touching in more places now, pressed together from hip to toes, and his shirt rode up when they flipped, so he can feel Shiro's belly against his own. Keith inhales sharp, but he still can't exhale, and he's trying to breathe less deeply because when he breathes, when he breathes, Shh. Keith. Shh. It's okay. Each hush is breathed across his skin. It smells like faded mint. It warms his skin. It slips into his lungs as he inhales desperately. It's okay. Breathe for me.
It's not that he wants to disobey. He doesn't. Keith shakes his head, and they're so close that his face smashes against Shiro's forearm. A whine catches in his throat. Walking the desert, and he found a coyote caught in a trap making that sound. Snare wire in its teeth as it tried to tear free. High and frightened, and there's no surviving. Keith. He's never heard his name said that way before. It's the shift of gravel beneath his bike on 2 hard turns, the roar of thunder off the mountains, the sureness of a hand at the back of his neck.
Focus on my breathing. Come on, Keith, you can do this. Match your breathing to mine. Be good for me, Keith.
And he doesn't think he can. Thoughts skittering away, some desert creature hunting for a burrow. Only Shiro's already there. Shiro's everywhere. Shiro's everything. Breathing deep and easy. His breath is warm and smells like faded mint. All he has to do is match it. The exhale is the hard part, coming out jagged.
That's it. You're doing so good. Just keep matching my breathing. Good.
It's okay if it comes out jagged, so long as it comes out. Shiro's here. All he has to do is match it. The slow inhale and the slower exhale. The lingering pause between. If he listens hard, he thinks he can hear the steady thrum of Shiro's heartbeat.
You're so good for me, Keith. My good boy.
Shiro's here. He's everything. He's the axis on which Keith's world tilts. They learned about Atlas in 9th grade English, and Shiro is his Atlas. Shiro's here, and Keith can breathe.